14 days. So there's lots of inspections that you can get depending on the type of property. All of the inspection fees. So up until this point, the only money that you have spent is for your earnest money deposit, your escrow, that 1% of your offer that was due at signing of your contract. So that's held by either the title company or the listing agent. So up until now, that's the only money that you've given out. The inspection fees are due though at the time of service. That is not a fee included in your closing costs. So if something is discovered, so I always say minimum your home inspection and your termite inspection, minimum, and then radon is preferred. So you're doing those three. And I will, by the way, recommend inspectors to you. You don't have to, go on Google unless you want, or if you have a friend or someone that they really loved, absolutely. But I will always recommend, I'll recommend lenders, title people, inspectors, insurance. I have all partners for that I know and I trust, and definitely, want to make sure that you utilize. If something is discovered during the inspection phase, actually, let me backtrack. So if something is found out during the inspection, in general, if something happens during the home inspection, you have the option to then submit a repair list, as we kind of talked about. You submit a repair list to the sellers. Then they can agree to address repairing it or provide a credit for it. So if you don't agree, so if you say, based on the inspection, I found blah, 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 1, 2, and 3, I'm asking the seller to repair it. This is, again, if there's nothing waived. And the sellers say no, or they say, I'll do 1, but I'm not doing 2 or 3. And you're, hell bent on all 3 items being done. We fight it, we stand firm, and ultimately the sellers say no. That it happens. We can break the contract at that point because it's within the 14-day inspection period. And you do get your deposit back at that point, but you cannot recover the costs incurred from your inspections. That's your due diligence period. Even, from what I've heard from attorneys, that's even really hard to fight in court to get those back. That's your due diligence. That's in the contract that it is at your expense. So at minimum, you want to do the home inspection, termite and radon, and septic if it's applicable. Obviously, if there's a septic system, I would recommend the septic. Definitely get the septic test done. There's a lot of other inspections that you can get. So without spending tons of money on during the inspection period, we try to come up. It's a fine line between overspending on inspections and being cautious and doing the right thing and trying to make sure that you know every single thing about this property prior to it being yours. So we can try to work that out depending on the property. There's sewer scopes. So if it's public sewer, you are responsible as a homeowner for your sewer line from your home to the curb. So if there's a tree out front and there's roots that have grown into that sewer line that is starting to cause it backing up and disintegrating, that's your financial responsibility, and it can be very expensive. So I, depending on the house, might recommend a sewer scope. Oil tank sweeps. Back in the day, there was oil heat, and some of the oil tanks were buried underground and they started to disintegrate. And so if you didn't pull the tank, some of the tanks were just abandoned and the houses were converted to gas, and the oil tanks that were underground were never removed. So if they're spending all this time underground, they're, going to get eaten away sometimes. And if that happens and there's oil still in the tank, it damages or it contaminates the soil. And then it is a dang mess. And I will tell you to run so fast so that you can get a tank sweep, because sometimes you don't even know there's a tank in the ground. So what happens is somebody comes out with a big, basically like a metal detector almost. It's a big metal, like big wand. And they go through the entire property and they try to see if there's anything underground, if anything comes up. So there's sewer scopes, oil tank sweeps. If you feel that there's some cracking in the foundation, you might want to get a structural engineer. If the house has stucco, sometimes stucco is not installed right, you can get a stucco inspection. Mold, as Sarah, that was your question. If we feel that there's mold or there's a lot of humidity, we may want to get a mold inspector in. But first and foremost, some things we'll know we want right away. Some things we can wait. We'll get the home inspector to give us a rundown, and he may say, I saw some indication that there may have been an oil heat here at some point. Maybe we should get a tank sweep. Or they may say there's some cracking in your foundation. You might want to get a structural engineer. Or because all of these are outside of their scope. They're kind of looking broadly at everything. And if they see something that might be there that's concerning, they're going to recommend it be further evaluated by a blank profession. So if they see some discoloration in the basement on the joists, they're going to say, I recommend a mold inspection. So we're not spending all of this money on inspections. You may just want to wait and see what the inspector says. And then, we can walk through, again, every house is different. Every situation is different. I just want to make sure that you know that all of these things do exist. If you are asthmatic or just in general nervous about mold, we just order the mold right off the bat. I think it's like $300 or so. Every inspection, the general home inspection, about, I want to say like around 600. And then each additional test is going to be more. So in general, I would budget $1,000 for inspections, but keeping in mind, it could be more depending on the type of house and what's going on. Okay, good. Yes, Gabby, I just saw your question, so I think I answered that. So about 600 for the home inspection. Sewer scopes, I think another 200, tank sweeps, 300. I mean, they're all a couple hundred. The home inspection being the most expensive. A structural engineer, I just had that done for a client that was 500. So hopefully that's not the case, but you're not gonna, more than likely, don't freak out. You're not gonna need all of those. So after we receive the reports, we give a list of repairs to the seller. Of course, unless we agreed to waive a certain amount of inspection repairs and we feel that, the house is in really good shape and we're not going to meet that. So then we ask for nothing and we accept the home in as is condition. If there was no inspection waiver in the contract at all, we give them a list and we negotiate. Like I said, we could say we want items 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 done. And the sellers come back and they say, we'll do 1, 2, and 5, but we feel like there's really no need to do 3 and 4. So we'll talk through that response and we'll decide, I can recommend contractors. Maybe we can get some estimates. Most buyers have no idea how much things cost. So, they might think this repair could cost $3,000, but if I get an estimate from an electrician, it might be more like 500. And then you'll be like, oh, 500, that's fine. I can take that off. So we'll work through that. The inspection phase we'll work through very carefully. We can take a sigh of relief when the seller agrees and we're good, because that's really kind of the biggest hurdle is the inspections. Okay. Oh, that was what I was going to say. Receipts. So we always ask for any repairs that are done that the sellers get a qualified licensed contractor to do the repair. I don't really care if the seller is a contractor that works for a contractor or whatever, or decides he wants to do it himself. I need a receipt from someone that's qualified, licensed. So we know if there's an issue, we can go back to that contractor. And if we know, and that way we know it was done right. We have no idea the capability of Mr. Seller or Mrs. Seller. I don't want it done. If it's like something really minor, like a light bulb replacement or something, who knows? Obviously, that's no big deal. But any repairs, any true repairs that are done need to be done by a licensed person that can provide a receipt.